A few months back, Junkyard Rock Story shared an article they wrote on Reddit with the title, "Say What You Want, but the Swedish sleaze metal scene that exploded in the early 2000s saved hair/glam metal and gave it the desperately needed new blood. Here are 6 bands from that era that are not active anymore, or are they?" Now, I don't normally go on Reddit, but I was excited to see what people would think of this list, and at the top of the thread was this comment. Not really, because no one's ever heard of those bands, and they definitely all seem like cosplay and inauthentic compared to the originals. Not saying they're not good, but they definitely didn't save hair metal. I couldn't believe what I was reading. It was the height of ignorance. How could he ignore everything that had gone on and brush it off as inauthentic? I replied with a comment of my own. I said, what an idiotic statement to make. The genre simply doesn't end with the first era. The new wave of Swedish sleaze was vital to the survival of this genre. If it weren't for bands like Crash Diet, Black Grey and Sister, and any of the other bands that flew the flag back then, there wouldn't have been a resurgence in the genre today. And I would also argue that these bands did this in a time where it was harder to make it. People like yourself will piss and moan that rock is dying and not support or acknowledge the heroes of my time. It's sad. Bottom line, without Crash Diet, without Dave Leppard, no one would have an interest in this music today. He saved it for us. And I stand by what I said. In the 2000s, while the majority of people was having their emo phase, Dave Leppard and the work he did with Crash Diet paved the way for this genre to come back. And thanks to the information superhighway that was MySpace back then, their influence spread far and wide and influenced a lot of people. I tried to imagine what Dino Jeans Xenos looked like. Some late 50-something-year-old fat American with a greasy ponytail, balding at the top, living in his own collection in his parents' basement. Then I tried to picture the very moment he wrote that comment. He was probably sitting in his dirty room surrounded by wank tissues, high in the smell of his own farts, typing from his Windows XP computer, blasting Wasp, not wanting or even able to see beyond his own ignorance. For weeks after this, I wondered, what in his mind made bands like Crash Diet or Veins of Jenna cosplay and inauthentic? After all, they worked just as hard, if not harder, to make it. When bands like Poison and Motley Crue got signed, that type of music was in favour. But when Crash Diet had to do it, they had to make it relevant all over again. And they succeeded. Crash Diet were the first band of their type since the decline of the genre to be signed to a major label. They conquered insurmountable odds. How much more authentic can you get? His laughing emoji to my reply just puzzled me even more. The level of ignorance was genuinely astonishing to me. But still, I needed to make sense of why he thought this way. So I sat back and I tried to imagine what it was like to be Diogenes Xenos. So I closed my eyes and I tried to imagine myself being in that dirty room. I looked to the left and I seen the music collection that he had. All 80s bands. Poison, Wasp, Rat, Motley Crue. And then it hit me. So a while back, a podcaster I listened to brought up a great topic. It was about established media and independent media and what it actually means to be famous. Established media being TV, radio, newspaper, and independent media being YouTubers, TikTokers, podcasters, website admins, etc. So unfortunately there is a certain demographic of people that will only value and validate what they see on the TV, the radio and the newspapers. Ooh, look at him. He was on the TV. Ooh, look, the newspapers are after writing about him. Despite hundreds of thousands of people seeing my work, with some sites even sharing and writing articles on what I've done, I don't get the "ooh, he was on the telly" or in the newspaper type reaction. Content creators like myself aren't held in the same regard. We weren't on the TV or in the newspapers, and it's the same deal for musicians who didn't get the push from established media. It's extremely rare for established media to give mention to independent media because we are the competition. They know that someday TV, radio and newspapers in the form we know it as will eventually become irrelevant. Don't believe me? Ask any young person what they watch more in their spare time. Actually, don't even ask them, just look at them. They're probably glued to their phone right now. It's the old guard facing down the new, refusing to pass the torch, basically. And I think the same thing is happening in the hair metal community. In this community, there is also a certain demographic that believes glam metal began in the 80s and went away in the early 90s, and that was it. For some reason the bands from the 2000s and onwards are not valid in their eyes. They're not the real deal. They're just wannabe fakers, and we should all listen to Poison for the rest of our days because, ooh, they were on the TV, and that band's only on YouTube. They're not legit. Again, it's established media versus independent media. Established media is more valued in their eyes and independent media isn't. In their eyes, the bands that made it back in the 80s and early 90s, the bands that established media supported, are the only bands that count or they see as valid. The heroes of my time, the bands who are flying the flag and fighting to keep the genre alive right now, they aren't getting a fair shake from established media and therefore are not valid and never will be. So unfortunately, they don't get the "ooh, I was on the telly" reaction. And I think this is the reason why Diogenes Xenos thinks this way. And it's like I said to him, people like him will bitch and moan that the genre is dying and yet they don't want to support the new bands, and that to me is sad. But it's not only sad, it's crazy. These people are quite happy to burn a hole through their wallet to see a coffin dodger band like Motley Crue perform the worst concert imaginable, but not give a band like, say, Harsh the time of day because they aren't the real deal. I can actually imagine these people hanging out in the echo chamber forums of Metal Sludge, stroking each other's backward opinions, and unfortunately these people will continue to do this until their last dying breath. But why not support the genre you love, especially when it needs help now more than ever? Whether a band made a splash or a wave, does it really matter so long as they contributed to this great genre we all love? Why be like this guy? Why have his mindset when you could embrace what the second wave has to offer? Established media is no one's friend, and I don't think the validity of a band should rely on it. These bands in a lot of ways might pleasantly surprise you. They're influenced by the music you love, and have grown up in a time where learning how to hone your craft, like for example learning how to play an instrument like the guitar, is a lot easier than it was back then. So you've got a lot of skilled players, a lot of superior players, believe it or not. So why not give the new wave a chance? If anyone in this era is brave enough to wear the look, write a song, start a band and attempt to climb a now broken ladder to success in order to keep this genre alive, this genre that we hold so dear, this genre that doesn't get the attention it deserves anymore, it doesn't get more authentically rock and roll than that, does it? So I would ask anyone who shares the opinion of this guy, take another look. Learn who Dave Leppard was and the difference he made. Listen to Rest in Sleaze, listen to Lit Up Let Down, check out bands like Harsh, Trench Dogs, Kissin' Dynamite, Sabir. Share their content if you like it, buy the albums, wear the t-shirts, fly the flag and support your scene. Help to keep things going just that little bit longer. We are a dying breed, we are the last of our kind, and if people continue to have the mindset that this guy has, then we may as well be putting the final nail in that coffin ourselves. Thanks for watching.